Welcome to this week's edition of History in My Backyard. I'm your host, Mrs. Janik. This week we are going to be checking out some Revolutionary War sites, and we are actually here today in the beautiful Jockey Hollow in Morristown, New Jersey. And I actually have a special guest with me today. He knows these sites very well. I have General George Washington.
Hello, welcome to my headquarters. I think we're going to learn a lot today. Stay tuned.
So here's our first site. Behind me we have the beautiful Ford Mansion. It was built in the early 1700s for a man named Jacob Ford Jr. He was actually an iron manufacturer in Morristown. He also served as a colonel in the Revolutionary War for the Morris County Militia. So he actually died in 1777, but in 1779, that's when General Washington and his army came to this area, and he got the approval from Ford's widow, Theodosia Ford, to use her home to actually stay in. So this became his headquarters for 6 months between 1779 and 1780. So he stayed here for 6 months, and then after that period of time, the Fords continued to live here for an additional 100 years. In the 1870s, this home went to auction, and then 4 prominent New Jersey residents, men, bought it, and they realized its historic value, and they created the Washington Association of New Jersey. And today it's actually furnished with furnishings to reflect what they thought it might have looked like when you lived here.
I did live here, and I lived here for 6 months with my wife, Martha. I had 5 aides and 18 servants, and many dignitaries would come and visit here. And they stayed in the home. The Fords also stayed here, Mrs. Ford and her 4 children, and they stayed in 2 separate rooms. But I did stay here for a bit of time.
Here we are at Fort Nonsense in Morristown. You could see that we're at a really high elevation. So this is one of the highest points in Morristown, which made it a really great place for a fort. So General Washington, you arrived in Morristown June 6, 1779. You established your camp here after your victories at Trenton and Princeton, and you noticed that this area was really, really secure because it fell in between the Watchung Mountains and the Great Swamp. So it was a really great place for your encampment in the winter time that year. So specifically this area here at Fort Nonsense is where you wanted to build your fort because it was high up, right? And it was basically for protection. It was really common during this time period to build a fort for protection. This was actually called the Hill, or Kinney's Hill. And what you did was you leveled trees, I think, right? You dug trenches, you added areas of raised ground. You actually had a guardhouse too, right?
Yeah,
that fit up to 30 people in it.
Yes.
Absolutely. You could see out, if you saw the British coming, you would be able to alert your troops.
For us, so
Absolutely.
we wanted to make sure that we were safe.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, the British Army never came to Morristown. So, and the soldiers called it Fort Nonsense. So, and the cool thing is that today, if you're interested in coming to this area of Jockey Hollow, there are 20 miles of trails that you could hike through, which is so great. And along those trails, you could see replica soldier huts, which is really cool. So I'm standing here in front of the Washington Headquarters Museum, and if you've learned a lot about these videos and you're interested in learning more yourself, you can always come and visit the museum when it opens up again. In the museum, there's a lot of information about wealthy families that lived in the area, similar to the Fords. There's information as well about military tactics, weapons, strategies that were used, and camp life of the soldiers. We're back again with this week's edition of History in My Backyard, and we're here today at Washington Rock National Park in Greenbrook, New Jersey. General Washington and I are here at the Washington Rock National Park in Greenbrook, New Jersey. We are located right now at the top of the first Watchung Mountain. The Watchung Mountains proved to be a very important geographic feature to your Continental Army during the Revolutionary War.
Absolutely. Let's show you why.
Yeah, we'll show you why.
Follow.
That would be great. So you can see here as we're walking everything that you're able to view by looking over the side of this mountain. You get a view of 30 miles of panoramic view here. And if you actually ever come to Washington Rock, you can even see a view of New York City in the distance. So specifically, General Washington was here in the springtime of 1777 to watch the British Army. So the British Army, at this point, you were able to see their whereabouts, right?
Absolutely. Perfect spot to do so. They didn't know what we were doing. That was one of our tactics. We hid from them. They would march in plain sight. We were smarter.
Yep.
And so we picked this area. You take a look. We can see those red coats coming.
Yep. And specifically, when General William Howe of the British Army was trying to go into Westfield, the area of Westfield, you were able to actually cut off their retreat. So it was definitely a tactic, and you can see how important the Watchung Mountains were in the war. So you can take in all of this. Welcome back to this week's edition of History in My Backyard. We're at a new location now. We are at the Middlebrook Encampment, located in Bound Brook, New Jersey. So we're only about 5 miles from Washington Rock National Park. We're just a little bit further west. This area is where you kept your troops.
Several troops here for many years.
Yeah, so you were actually here twice.
Right.
In 1777, so in like the spring, summertime, around May to July of 1777, and then again in the winter time of 1778 into 1779. And you had somewhere between, what would you say, like 8,000 troops
8,000
at a time.
troops here. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can see back here. This is where they would camp. We would set up tents.
Yep. Then they would build cabins out of logs. They would cover it with clay. So think about 8,000 to 10,000 people living here. Likely they were spread all over the Watchung Mountains. So we're on the same mountain as we were before, overlooking on Washington Rock. And you could see why this would be a really great spot for you, because you could overlook and again see 30 miles out there, and you could see the British movement that way. So it was a really important spot for
And this
you in
spot,
the war.
we're hidden too.
Hidden, absolutely, yeah. And you knew the land better than the British too, right?
Absolutely.
This was new to them. They didn't know anything about the land here, but you did, and your troops did, because you lived here. Yeah. So we're standing now in front of a 13-star flag, and it's actually believed that the first official United States flag was flown right here in this location at the Middlebrook Encampment. And Congress passed a law on June 14, 1777 that adopted a national flag, and it's believed that the flag was actually transported from Philadelphia to this location sometime between June 14th and July 2nd when you were here with your troops. Yeah, and actually, so today there's a 13-star flag. You can see it behind me. It flies 24 hours a day. Congress had to pass a special act to allow it to be flown 24 hours a day. You can still see that. And on July 4th every year, the flag is changed. The Declaration of Independence is read at this location. Yeah, and it's a site that people come to, and they get to enjoy the flag and remember all of the great things that you did here.
Thank you.